I'll lead. Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. My name is Ashley McCurry. I'm here on behalf of Defendify. Welcome to our monthly, sometimes more than once a month, cybersecurity podcast, where we bring intelligent people who have done something in either cybersecurity or tech, and we bring them in, we invite them to our community with the goal of us all increasing our cybersecurity resilience together. I'm so excited to be joined here by Aaron Birnbaum. Aaron and I had some preliminary conversations that have really changed what I was going to originally bring him in to share with you guys. His background is he starts companies and he runs all aspects of companies, and now he acts as a cybersecurity expert. He has experience in finance, banking, retail, e-commerce, healthcare, and service businesses. His previous startup was an advanced data analytics CRM for healthcare companies. So when that company got attacked, he wanted to know more about how they did it and got interested. And that's what led him into the cybersecurity journey. So now he works at Travis, which is a unique cybersecurity platform. And we're really excited to bring him and his experience here today. And quite frankly, nerd out a little bit because usually we come from the experts that are talking about frameworks or we're talking about maybe what they need to bring into their business. You're coming from the opposite perspective as a real person, a real business owner that had an experience. And we're hoping that you share that with us. So welcome, Aaron. Nice to meet you and see you again. Thank you.
And you as well. Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. And I enjoyed our other conversation. I'm sure I'll enjoy this one as well.
Yes. Found it easy to talk to each other. And I think the nature of our community, which for those of you who are new to Defendify or new to these webinars, just a reminder, the chat on the right, my right, is part of our community here. We all work together to sort of learn from each other, grow with each other. Cybersecurity is ever evolving and challenging. So please use the chat on the right, engage, tell us where you're from, ask questions. We're going to bring those questions into the chat. Of course, we had some prepared questions as well, but it's not uncommon for us to go way off script because the folks that are here need different information than we had prepped, which is exactly why we're here. It's intended to be a casual conversation. So hello, I see folks. I'll be managing the chat while Aaron is talking, but for now, I guess we'll kick it off. Aaron, as if we never talked, as if you never told me the story of your business and what got you into cybersecurity, can you start kind of bringing that information and that the experience of getting engaged in your previous company into this community for us and just lay the groundwork?
Sure. Thank you. I'd be glad to. I'm pleasantly surprised to see people from all over the world here. This is really great. I'm from Ottawa, Massachusetts, Texas, Trinidad, Tobago, Hawaii. Okay, so
there's 200 people that want to hear from you today.
Well, personal first. Where to begin? So without going through the formative years of my life, I've always been interested in technology. I've always used it in different roles in whatever job or organization I had. In 2003, I started a company called CITM, and it evolved into, as Ashley mentioned, a data analytics CRM, but it also had a payment component. So effectively, it was healthcare products, not insurance, but healthcare products, benefit plans, dental plans, that kind of thing. And we would work with marketing groups to get their customer information into the CRM. The CRM would then package it into one bill. And so instead of getting a bill from A, B, C, and D, you just got a bill from us, healthcare, and you would make one payment. We would take the payment, we'd allocate it out to everyone that needed to be paid. We'd take a piece ourselves, and whatever was left, we would give to the marketing group, which was a good business. There's healthcare is a good business, and helping people is great. I like the fact that I'm helping people in cyber, and I like the fact that I was helping people in healthcare. And the two are actually, I had a discussion about this the other day, very similar. The mindset of most cyber people is I want to help businesses. I like to make a living doing it, of course, and work with cool people, of course. But as I'm sure everyone on this call is aware, the cyber community is arguably the best community out there in any industry because everybody's helping. You have to, otherwise we're all going to drown. So the years went by. We had some good years. We had some bad years. we had some really good years and some really, really bad years. But it sounds like a Hollywood cliche, but when you're starting a company or even when you're actively running a company, you have to sacrifice. There's only 24 hours in a day. So you have to give up time somewhere. And invariably, it ends up being your personal relationships, your family. I'm happily married, have been for 25 years, and I'm blessed every day that I wake up and my wife is still there. I have a wonderful daughter, and I made it a point to prioritize them as best I could. But realistically, there were times when I didn't get to spend time with them. And so I had really given up and sacrificed. And at any rate, 13 years in, I get a call in the morning. All my phones are blowing up. House phones, cell phones. This was back in when dinosaurs ruled the earth and we had handset phones that plugged into the wall. And every phone in my house was blowing up, including my wife's cell phone, which was for dire, dire emergencies. So I grabbed the phone. I'm like, well, what's going on? And the woman on the end of the call goes, we have a problem. The site is down. And I said, no, the site's not down. And she's like, no, I'm pretty sure the site's down. I'm like, did you check your internet? I'm like, the site doesn't go down. Now, this is 15 years ago now. Wow. Not everyone was on the cloud. The cloud was still kind of new. There were some, cutting edge people that were on it. They were trying to sell it, but we were not on a cloud. We had backups, we had redundancies, we had failover. We had actually gone through a PCI compliant audit about 2 months, month and a half, 2 months before this happened, and passed with flying colors. I had architected this system with assistance, of course, but everyone agreed this was a good system. It was bulletproof. We tested it. Crazy idea. And everything worked as planned. So we moved on and didn't think about it. I went to the website. The website was down. And again, without getting hardcore technical, basically they were able to exploit a vulnerability in a website that was being hosted on the server that should not have been hosted on the server or have been better isolated. It was a moment of absolute sheer panic. I'll let your imaginations go wild, but we had over 100,000 records of healthcare information and financial services information that potentially could have been exfiltrated. That was not great. That feeling of utter panic and fear and just, I try not to think about it. I'm getting goosebumps just thinking about it again because it was horrible. It was absolutely horrible. I knew what the penalties were. I knew what the potential fallout from this could be. And it was not me winning any kind of prizes. And I also had given up for this. And I felt like whoever had done this was attacking like my family, my child almost, that I had birthed for the last 13 years. And quickly got on the phone with our web host at the time. Went through everything. We were able to track their patterns. They were able to get to the web server. They got stuck at the application server and they never made it to our database, which we could prove. So breathe a sigh of relief, unclench, whatever you want to call it, and take a deep breath and then go and take a look and figure out what happened. How did it happen? Why did it happen? And what do we do to make sure it never, ever happens again? And that mentality is what actually led me into security, because fast forward a couple of years and my partner had different ideas than I did. I went my way, she went her way, and I had to do something because I'm not independently wealthy. And so I ended up starting just a basic consulting cybersecurity practice. And when I would talk to people, I would be like, listen, I know how it feels. It sucks. You do not want to have this feeling. You do not want to have a business that's, generating enough money to pay for all the people in your office and pay for your rent and pay for your kids' education and your vacation home if you have one, or whatever it is, even just the food on your table. You don't want to have that. And I'm very obviously passionate about it because I went through it, in spite of the fact that we were compliant. And you'll hear professionals go, compliance is not security, security is not compliance. It's absolutely true. And if anybody wants a case study, this is a great one, because we had paperwork in hand. We had a SQA, a qualified assessor, come in, audit everything, not just our documents, but they went to the facility and they audited that. We were doing a significant volume of transactions, and we spent the money to do it right. Mm-hmm. We were compliant as heck. And talking a couple of years later, when I was talking to someone who's a PCI.
Compliant as heck would be a good
compliant as heck. There you go.
Yeah.
So I was talking to someone a couple of years later, and they said, listen, you can be compliant and PCI, I don't remember what it was, 3.1 maybe. It was probably older than that. But you could have the password PASSWORD 123 exclamation point, because it's long enough. It has uppercase, lowercase, and symbols. But is it a secure password? Probably not. But you're compliant. So again, you get into that compliance versus security discussion. At any rate, I had I spent a lot of time reading books. I like to read books. For those of you who don't know, a book is a bunch of paper put together and doesn't have a plug. So when the lights go out, you can still read it. I don't know how old our audience is here, but when dinosaurs ruled the earth with me, never ran out of battery on my book. But I have, there you go. I have books and books and books, and that's just in this room. Read a ton of books, built my own labs, watched YouTube videos, started going to conferences, started speaking to people. And the best and biggest thing for me was networking on Peer List, which, rest in peace, was a great security site, if you're old enough to remember it, and LinkedIn. And I reached out to people on LinkedIn that they don't know me from a hole in the wall. I never met them. I've never seen them. But they were saying something that I agreed with or had a question about. And so I would reach out to them and go, listen, not trying to waste your time, not trying to sell you something. I want to understand this. And I developed some phenomenal relationships with people, both professionally and personally, that I, still maintain today. Most of the people on my board of advisors are people that I met in the security space, because that have either owned their own businesses or been senior people at businesses or leaders, and talk with knowledge about cybersecurity and are staying current, which is, everyone knows, is a constant challenge. I didn't stop reading books. I didn't stop going to webinars. I didn't stop anything, because you have to keep up. You have to keep going. You have to talk. I was talking to somebody the other day, and they said, what do you think the biggest threat is? And I go, other than AI, because that's all anybody wants to talk about is AI and cyber now. And it is a tool like a lot of other tools. But it's something where if you don't stay current, you will be behind. If you're not going and getting, and not even necessarily certifications or taking paid classes, just watch a YouTube video or listen to a podcast or read a technical article, or, whatever you're into, go to GitHub and download something and go play with it and go poke around with it. I think most of the people that I've encountered, the vast, vast majority, I say 95%, are smart, they're clever, and they're inquisitive. They want to solve a problem. I used to think it was me. I'm like, I really like puzzles. I like to solve puzzles, like jigsaw puzzles and little doodad puzzles. And I play games where you're solving a puzzle. And I thought it was just me, but it seems to be kind of symptomatic of a security professional. They're curious and they want to solve a problem. And it's not necessarily a problem that exists, but they want to prevent a problem from happening in the future. Yeah. And again, I'll use my healthcare analogy. You're like a doctor or a nurse or whatever. You're determining what the symptoms are. You're trying to find the cure. You're trying to give them prevention. If we were talking earlier about the smoking of cigarettes, which apparently used to be a thing, and I'm glad to see is no longer.
Yeah, do not smoke cigarettes, just so we're clear. That's what we're talking about. Just so we're clear. I'm talking about going into the gas station and paying with cash, which our parents did because they bought cigarettes. Just to put that out there in the recording.
To keep that out there, in case our kids are watching.
We're not talking about smoking cigarettes, on our own pre and post webinars or anything like that. Just to be clear.
So, but
Well,
people are
and explain. So PCI compliant doesn't necessarily have the same attachment as like a cybersecurity, like a NIST. Can you explain for anyone who's outside of your industry, what is PCI compliant, and why would that make anyone think that there was safety there? And then let's start there, and I'll have a couple questions on that.
okay. So PCI is the Payment Cards International organization that establishes the rules and regulations that merchants have to abide by in order to process credit cards or take ACH payments. So pretty much any merchant, whether it's physical e-commerce or Bob at the fair that's selling snow cones with his little zippity thing, they have specific rules. For example, I'm sure most people have seen a credit card on the back. There's a little 3-digit number. You are never supposed to store that in plain text. It is never to be stored. You can store, I believe, the last 4 digits of a credit card, or maybe the last 4 you can't. It's been a while. You'll have to excuse me. But it's
yep.
So if you're going to display it, like in a CRM, you have to use asterisks or X's or something, so it's never displayed. You're never supposed to write down all the details on a card. And if you do, because the customer is giving it to you and your credit card machine is down, you can write it down, but then you have to secure it locked or in a safe and destroy it when you're done using it. Those are some kind of extreme things, but you should have complex passwords. You should always use HTTPS or TLS. You should always do secure transmission. You should make efforts to verify that the cardholder is indeed the cardholder. They call that KYC, know your customer. And then there are other technical requirements. You should have a firewall. You should have the antivirus. If you do any kind of GRC, you're going to see the same kind of questions on a lot of different frameworks. You have to have a complex password.
Yeah.
I know PCI has discussed, and I've been kind of out of PCI for a while, but you have to have multi-factor authentication, just basic good security standards. And if you don't do that, you can be penalized up to including you lose your merchant account and you cannot do business. Well, you can't do it through payment.
When I worked in fundraising, we also had like a PCI compliant payment processing system. And I will say, as someone who processed donations for, as fundraising, I knew what PCI compliance was, but to me, it felt like the payment processor had to be PCI compliant. It did not transfer to me. And this is before my cybersecurity training. It did not transfer to me as a staffer at that time that I needed to understand that. It almost felt like, the third party, like that's why we have to process credit cards with this company. It is because they are PCI compliant. So I'm not sure if that's still the experience, but if folks are sort of trying to understand like, I'm PCI compliant, but I don't really know all those things. The reality is like for me at a previous job, it was the third party that was PCI compliant, not me, which may not be. You were the person that was processing the payments for them. So it may have been you had a deeper understanding. But for folks in the industry, like that is not enough. I think that's what I'm trying to get clear. Being PCI compliant does not mean you are cybersecurity resilient. And that's how I interpret that. So I want to make sure we get that message out there.
It's a very common perception, and a lot of organizations have shifted the risk to an online payment platform. I'm sure we all have heard the usual suspects. No free plugs here. But there are, like any framework, there are also policies that need to be in place. If you're taking a credit card over the phone, you're facilitating that process. You're part of the chain. So you need to have policies and processes. If you're entering that into a computer at your hair salon, and it's got credit card information, well, you laugh, but it happens.
I don't, because when you're a fundraiser, you do call time.
Right.
And call time is just you do cold calls. Well, sometimes people call you back and you're driving home by then. And I have absolutely, pulled over the car. This was years ago. Again, I want to make sure this is very outside of the statute of limitations. I have pulled over and written a credit card number, in like lip liner. I'm not joking, on the dashboard, because I wanted to get that donation because I had made the call, and then I would go home and type it. So when you said the hair salon thing, in my brain, I was thinking, gosh, I am so glad I did fundraising before cybersecurity, because I couldn't have done any of that. I would have felt like, we shouldn't even have been using our personal cell phones, but low dollar campaigns in my 20s are very different.
And what's the risk profile? Are you worried about a $25 campaign? But the other thing is, and something that I'm very big on and was kind of questioned about this philosophy, we don't know so much. And one of the things when you introduced me, you said I was an expert. I don't consider myself an expert by any stretch of the imagination. And that's not me just being humble. That's me having a billionth of a gram of knowledge of all cybersecurity. So when I meet people and they say I'm a cybersecurity expert, I'm kind of like, great, good for you. I don't know. I don't know everything. I'm very impressed you could know everything unless you have a AI brain chip implant and you can access all the known knowledge in the world. But we find ourselves criticizing people a lot of the time out of their own ignorance. Nigerian prince scam, 419 scam. Well, what kind of idiot would ever fall for that? Well, seeing as how it's been going on for, I don't know, 30 years, there's some kind of person that has fallen for it. And they're not necessarily an idiot. When I was young, I sound like my dad. When I was young, and my first couple jobs in an office, you'd walk in and they'd say, here you go, here's your ID badge, or here's your key, or whatever it is. Take you over to the copier. You got to put it here and lay it this way. If you're really old like me, there was a thing called a fax machine. They would show you how to set that up, and you have to call and then hang up, or you have to put it this way, and then they would take you to, eventually, as time progressed and we got away from the stone tablets, here's your computer and here's your email address. But they wouldn't tell you how to use it. They wouldn't tell you what to look for. They wouldn't, they might tell you, well, here's a list where you can email everybody in your department. But no one that I've ever met, and I ask this question all the time, and if anyone on this call can tell me that I'm wrong, that'd be great. But did you ever take a class where you ever instructed on email, how to do it, BCC versus CC? We've all done it. We've all CC'd everybody accidentally. We've all BCC'd the wrong person or not put the right person in there. No one ever taught us how to do it. We just kind of learned. And in that instance, we didn't learn about the risks. We didn't learn about the threats. We didn't learn there were bad guys out there that wanted our passwords because, as everyone in cyber knows, the current internet was not built to be secure. It was not, absolutely not. It still isn't, as evidenced by the fact that there's 200 plus people on the call talking about cybersecurity. It is a fundamental problem combined with the massive popularity of one operating system, which has been around for 40, 50 years now and continues to have problems. And I'm not saying anything good. I'm not saying anything bad about them. I'm not saying anything good about them. I'm not saying anything about them. That's their business. They made their business decisions. But it's very frustrating to me when every month one of my machines needs to be download updates, install updates, blah, 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 of 100 patches a month. It's very frustrating. And I'm not trying to slam that particular organization, which I have not named. But again, we didn't know. We didn't know we were going to ever have to patch. We didn't know we were ever going to have complex, crazy, secret passwords. And again, I'm serious. If anyone could say, oh, yeah, no, I took a class. We went over everything. My mother and father sat me down and explained to me what the email was and how to use it. I still, to date myself, my uncle, who's significantly older than I am, still uses his AOL email address.
I have a brother-in-law who still does, yeah.
Because it works.
He pays for it. We make fun of him all the time, yeah.
I don't want to change to something new. And as one gets older, you tend to be more resistant to change, and you're used to doing things a certain way, and you don't want to necessarily bring in, I don't want to switch to Proton Mail, or I don't want to switch to one of the free email services because I think they're harvesting my data. Again, constant change, can't keep up with it, have to educate people to use it. And now we have cybersecurity awareness programs. which is, hey, everybody, think secure and don't click on links. But I'm not going to go there because I'll rant and rave on that one for a while. But
no, you're totally right. And so when you're saying don't click on the links, it doesn't sound like there was an email link breach for the PCI compliant
No.
company. It does not seem like that was the issue. So would you say in that case it was a technological issue, or was it that you didn't realize that the website shouldn't have been hosted in this way, but it was hosted on that way? Like what would have been the thing that you can advise business leaders today to not repeat that same issue?
I actually have thought long and hard about that. Believe it or not. The problem was we had rules, we had policies, we had procedures. We were doing some things for some of our clients to help them. And some of that included hosting a basic website. For example, I don't know, maybe like a WordPress website, hypothetically. We had a policy against doing it, but we did it. And a lot of businesses will say, customer's always right. I want to make them happy. We do a lot of business with them. I'm going to bend the rules a little bit. Da, 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 da. We never should have broken that rule. And so if you're going to have a rule, everyone has to follow it, including, the guy or woman on their first day of the job to the CEO of the company. If you want to create a secure culture, everyone has to be on board. And I've been in organizations and talked about security awareness. And, afterwards, a woman came up to me and said, here's the problem we have. We have a VP in our organization that's been around for a long time, best friends with the owner. He doesn't do any of this, and he won't. And we've tried to get him.
He won't do two-factor authentication. He won't do the trainings. He won't do
password
manager. Exactly. He won't do any of it.
Exactly. Okay. He refuses to do it. And there's nothing I can really do because, I can talk to his boss, but his boss is the owner, who's his best friend. And I said, well, then basically you don't have a culture of security awareness. You have a group of people, most of which understand the big thing. But here's the question you have to ask the owner. If a breach occurs, it's probably coming from this person. If it puts his business out of business, how good of a friend is he going to be to him then? And it's usually not something, it's like use two-factor authentication. You don't need to be a rocket surgeon to figure that one out. Do you have a phone? Does it send you a number? Put the number in. It's not that difficult. It doesn't take you 16 hours. I know a lot of people recommend password managers because then they only have to remember one master password. Except if that master password gets discovered, then you lose everything. So a lot of people will talk about convenience versus security. The more secure we are, the more inconvenient it is. The longer it takes to get things done. It's a process. I got to wait for the code. Sometimes the code doesn't come. Sometimes it comes in my email. Sometimes my spam filter will prevent me from getting the second factor for 10, 20 minutes, an hour, 2 hours, and then I forget about it. So I can't get the task done that I want to get done. And in a very ADD world, that's a big problem.
Fair.
But if you have to, starting from when you walk into a building, a secure building, you got to stop. You got to make sure you have your badge or your fob or your identification or whatever.
Or your passport. We were talking about that earlier.
Your passport, right, exactly. So you have to stop and think about that. Oh, I forgot it in my car. Then you got to go back to your car. Then you got to come in. You got to swipe in or you got to sign in or you got to, retina eye scan, depending on where you are and what mission you have accepted. Then you go to your system, you sit down, you open it up, you log in, you type in your username, you type in your password, you wait for it to boot up, blah, 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 blah. Sometimes it takes, depending on the hardware and the software and the systems that you have, that could take a little bit. Sometimes you need to do another multi-factor there. You get in. All right, well, I'm going to boot up my email. Guess what? It's going to ask me for a password. Every time I go to a website that I need, and I understand we have single sign-on. We have all these great solutions to deal with it, but I have to do some banking online, which I'm not a big fan of, but if you do it, do it. I got to go there. I got to log in. I got to put my password in, but I'm not putting that in my password manager. So I have to put that in another part of my brain or write it down on my toe or something. And then I got to wait for and so these things take time and they're inconvenient to people and they do interfere with the work process. But that's the cost of doing business. But people don't it's annoying. Personally, the reason that I hate criminals is because they make me have to remember 8 billion freaking passwords because it's so annoying.
And the reason you make them.
And I've said this, I will absolutely, until the day I die, admit that I need to practice what I preach more because there are instances, if I'm not putting a credit card in, I don't really care if someone gets my password. So I'll use a default password or I'll use Aaron's Defendify password, 123, or Aaron's Yahoo password, 123. No, I'm kidding.
Don't tell us.
But I'm guilty of reusing the password. But I know people that they had a relationship with another person and they gave them their Netflix password, which was also their banking password, and that can come back and kind of be bad. So yeah, you shouldn't use the same password. But again, it's a convenience thing. I also will absolutely admit I have clicked the link, and I probably will do it again. I've done it. If you say you've never done it, God bless you. I really mean that because that's awesome. I have been in this industry for over 10 years. And during that time, I have clicked the link. I admit it. I have. There's incredible stuff out there. And not even that. If you're going to do a red team engagement, if you're going to do a pen test or penetration test, if you're going to go for either physical or electronic, doesn't matter. You do it 4:30 on a Friday. Why?
Why?
Because no one's paying attention. Everyone's mentally checked out. They're tired. 5 o'clock is right around the corner. 2-3 day weekend. No one pays attention. It's the best time. And the time that everyone has to be the most aware that they're not. I left early. Or, yeah, I know it's 4:30. Bam. Gonna get in every time. Hey, I just need to check something in your server closet real quick. It's 4:30. I know I'll be in and out. You can go home on time. Okay. And again,
but if you left early, you wouldn't click the link because you wouldn't be working.
You wouldn't be working.
We all have to leave at 4 on long weekends.
There we go. Or not even come in on Fridays. That's my plan. But again, that's not a stupid person. That's not a dumb person. That's an ignorant person, which means they don't know. You can be an ignorant genius. There's things that you just don't know. You're not familiar with. You have no idea about. And that's part of the problem is just globally educating people on why cybersecurity is a problem, what the basic things they can do, how criminals are lazy. You put up multi-factor authentication, you put up a firewall, you have complex passwords. Now you become exponentially harder to attack, right? If I'm a lazy criminal, I'm going to try, okay, go on to the next one. You know how many businesses there are? We have so many IP addresses, we have to have a new IP address scheme. There's billions of potential targets out there. Why would I waste an extra couple of hours trying to get into Aaron's business when I can go to his neighbor and walk out with, the crown jewels or whatever they have over there? I don't know what they have over there. I'm a little worried.
Well, you're talking about people being ignorant. So what are some ways that we can train our colleagues in our businesses? At Defendify, we have we have an annual training, and then we have monthly animated videos that are actually really interesting. And so you get regular recurring knowledge on things that are happening recent. They always have a timeline that's recent to what has actually happened in the news. We have a Slack channel that whenever there's something funny or we think they're funny, usually it's when they're trying to test us, it ends up in the Slack channel. There's a whole culture of talking about cybersecurity all around. And then another thing we'll talk about is no shaming. So I have also clicked the link when I was early on. You click the link and then you have to watch another video and it'll say I wish you shouldn't have clicked that, and you're going, man, I really wish our IT guys didn't see that I clicked it. Of course they did. It was part of the test. So what we'll do is we'll have the videos and we'll have the trainings and we'll have the culture and we'll do the testings, and then you get another video if you fail the test. Not fail, we shouldn't say it that way. If you click a link very reasonably, you'll get another reminder on what you should look for next time. I don't even think that's all of the things, but on the top of my head, all of those things together create a cybersecurity culture here at Defendify. That's not always the same in every single industry. Obviously, we're a cybersecurity, right? So we're talking about it all the time. But for for other companies, we're a real company. For other companies that are not living and breathing and drowning in cybersecurity news, how do we train them? How do we make it part of the culture?
I think that what you've described is excellent. I think that you hit on a couple of key points. One is frequency. The best analogy I ever heard, and I use this, but I will admit I didn't come up with it, but it's a great analogy, is this. You do cybersecurity training once a year. I go to the gym once a year. I don't know why I'm not buff. What's the problem? There is a organization that I will not name that does a annual cybersecurity training in January of every year. So if you go join the company on February, you go 11 months without any cybersecurity training.
Oh, that would happen here.
I'm just saying. So frequency is good. Monthly. I can argue both points of the phishing tests. I understand why they do them. I understand that they have to tell you if you're wrong. What they don't have to do is say, Ashley, you silly, stupid, ignorant, blah, 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 blah. Yeah, I mean, ignorant, yeah, maybe. But you know what? Maybe you are, maybe you aren't. Maybe you just had a bad day. Maybe it was Friday at 4:30.
I only did it once.
You might do it again. The technology is amazing. I mean, we see what AI can do. It can absolutely generate really high quality emails and logos and everything. So I want people to understand, I click the link isn't good, not because I'm dumb, but I clicked the link because the attacker was smarter, or in this instance, was able to persuade me. Not even necessarily smarter than me, but able to persuade you. You could have, God forbid, my kid hurts her leg. I'm really worried about that. I'm not thinking about what I'm doing. Hockey is a big sport. I live north of Boston. Hockey's a big sport here. If you ever watch a hockey game, it's fun. You get to beat up people. Well, I don't, but those guys and women get to beat up people. And the women's hockey is just as freaking brutal. God bless them. I'm not getting on that ice. But a hockey goalie is a cybersecurity icon because there's 3 periods in hockey. You can play perfect for 99.99999%. And you let in one goal, you have 1,000 shots on you. You let in one goal, your team loses. You play phenomenal, lights out, all-star. You block everything that gets thrown at you. One goal, and everything is done. You lose. And to me, that's
a more boring position, actually.
Really?
Goalie. I mean, again, I don't play sports in that way, but yeah, you almost want to be in the action. Like the goalie is like, but now you're right. It has a lot of weight and it has a lot of importance. And I apologize if there's any goalies in the crowd that feel offended that I thought it was a more boring position, but I would have assumed, I played field hockey and I thought that was the more boring position. Wouldn't have gone for that. But when you say it that way, it carries a lot of weight, and you're right. And it does kind of track to cybersecurity, right? You can be perfect, but not all perfect. And then boom, now your business is breached.
It's nearly impossible to be perfect. The other thing you talked about, which I'm a big fan of, is what I call edutainment. And I did not come up with the idea, somebody else did. But basically, it has to be educational and it has to be entertaining. We've all probably had a teacher who talked like this and the subject matter was very boring and no one paid attention and you didn't retain anything and probably fell asleep in class. And we've all had great dynamic teachers that are getting us excited and getting our hands in, hey, try doing this and that. If you don't have that edutainment value, you're not going to learn as well. You're not going to retain it as well. And you're not going to put it into practice because it's, for lack of a better phrase, really just turning you off. You just tune it out. You don't think about it. I know there's a number of companies out there that have very good products. I personally like the kind of methodology you described. I like little animated shorts. I'm not going to watch a 20-minute video every day. Sorry, not going to do it. Going to turn it on so it gets recorded, and then I'm going to go do something else. If it's more than a minute and a half, no, you lost me.
Unless it has a story. Yeah, like Ninja will have the storyline and they'll make it look cool, and you're like, "Ooh, what is it this month?" And I can't. I'm always thinking, how do they think of these clever storylines? How do they do it? I don't know, but I'm grateful for them, because the reality is I read a lot of cybersecurity news, but sometimes it's not until the Ninja trainings that I watch that I'm going, oh, now I understand how that looked in the company. Oh, Kevin says they're based on real life scenarios. Yeah, and so you can read the article, but then they'll act it out with kind of an anime vibe, like an anime cartoon vibe, where the characters will actually show how it happens. And you're like, that's not crazy. Like that I can see how that happened, even though the article I read last month that this is based off of, it seemed more technical. The articles tend to be more technical. And I do like the storyline of how it affects the regular people. You don't notice it without somebody explaining it to you if you're not in tech, I think.
The average user is not technical.
Right.
You know, I think people in cybersecurity kind of almost resent those trainings because they think they're dumbed down. But the reality is they have to apply to everybody. You have to go to a lowest common denominator. You have to have everyone out there to be able to benefit. Or what no one wants to do is customize every single one for maybe an industry, maybe a specific business. I used to do security awareness talks, and I had to stop doing them because I had to charge too much. Because I would go and I would research the company. I would research the industry. I would call the company and ask some questions. I would get a list of the people in the organization. I would find what kind of cars they had. I would find what were the lingo and the jargon of that industry, so I could speak to them in a way that they could understand. And I also had to incorporate some cybersecurity into it. But it was, the prepping for them was like 6 to 8 hours. And then it's, half an hour speech. And then, so how I can't just bill for half an hour of my time. It's not going to be very economically feasible unless I charge an insane hourly rate, which I don't want to do. I want to help people, but I got phenomenal feedback. Wow, you really understand our industry. I'm like, yeah, because I did the research and I know who wants to attack your industry and why they want to attack your industry and where they've successfully done it in the past, what they're currently doing. Somebody earlier referred to the fact that what's going on right now. You said it about those trainings, because building that kind of content used to be a lot of time and a lot of talent, and it cost a lot of money. And there have been organizations in the past that just had, I'm not going to say black and white videos of guys in ties, but it was pretty close. And it was really cheap. So everybody did it. But again, we're compliant. We have videos. So
somebody in the comments just said, I can't begin to tell you how many times one of our staff has flagged a phish email with the line, I remembered the scenario for a recent Ninja episode. So thank you, Leslie, for that. In the comments, we really appreciate it. So if someone is sitting in the audience or maybe watching this recording later, and they have the attitude of, oh, well, we're one of a million small businesses, they're not coming to me. I'm sure they're not coming to me. We don't want to put fear in anyone's viewpoint. That's not helpful. But what I would like to ask is if a leader could make a meaningful change tomorrow that wasn't based out of fear, but just a meaningful change to protect their business, even if they thought they were never going to get attacked, because obviously we know they're going to attack you. It's not about if, it's when. But if they could make one meaningful change, or maybe two, what would you suggest?
Again, I talk about just putting up some basic roadblocks will push the attackers on to the next person. I think that everyone, if it is available, should use MFA. Absolutely. Okay. There's no question about it. There are more cell phones on this planet than toothbrushes. So I'm pretty sure everyone has a device. It's true. It's stat. Look it up. AI told me it must be right. Everyone.
I want to Google it. It's appropriate right now, but I'm going to Google it right after.
Okay. You can get a text message, or you can get a push notification, or you can have a application that allows you to do multi-factor relatively quickly, relatively easy. That is big. The other thing is, I think that it's important that not just business owners, but business people understand It's not about robbing a bank. Your data, your login is valuable because of what it can lead to. So it's a question of, well, I don't really care if they take my email. Well, if I take your email and then I go through your contacts and I find out somebody at X company, and then I use that to do some kind of phishing, they're not looking for it from me or for you, excuse me. If you mail your brother-in-law, you send an email to your brother-in-law at his AOL address. Oh, it's Ashley. Oh, this is kind of weird, but it's Friday at 4:30. I'm clicking on it.
Yeah.
So
You
now,
would too.
everyone's data has value. Every business has data because you can then use that foothold to grow. So if I get, like I said, I live in New Hampshire. It's a very small state. I'm like an hour from Boston. There's a lot of business. I live in the capital, right next to the capital. So there's a lot of businesses there. And if you could get a foothold in one, you could probably very quickly get a foothold in a lot of them. You could launch a bot attack. You could do denial of service. You could do all sorts of fun, bad things. And the mentality of it's not going to happen to me, I hear it all the time. I hear it all. It's not going to happen to me. I'm not worried about it. I've gone to law offices, 3 or 4 lawyers that have a practice. They have a couple paralegals, not huge, not $1 billion, but they're probably billing, $400 or $500 an hour. That adds up to 7 figures pretty quick. And they're not interested in spending $2,500 a month to protect that. And I can try, and maybe I'm a horrible salesman, which has been posited to me before, but they just don't get it. They don't think it's a threat, and they don't want to spend them. If they do think it's a threat, they don't think spending the money is the answer to the threat. And
because the money that they spend in the year will be less than maybe like a ransomware request, or maybe they're aware of how much their business would lose if they lost access to all of their systems for a week or a month or whatever, however long it takes to rebuild it. Do you think it's more that they think that they'll be able to pay out of the problem, or that they don't realize the loss of financial resources that can happen given a breach?
I don't know, but I would say the second. I think the problem is they just don't consider it in their day-to-day thing. And one of the times when I've tried to hammer it home, I said, does your business have general liability?
Yeah.
Of course they do. We're not idiots. Of course we do. Absolutely we have it. Okay, great. Why? Because you've got insurance against an event that may or may never occur. But you don't want to insure against an event that will eventually occur. So I've had, I bang my head, and I'm going to keep banging my head because I really do want to help people. But, it's small and medium-sized businesses are probably the ones that need the most help and the ones most resistant to it. So it stinks because
when you have been able to convince folks that the resources that they're going to spend, maybe monthly or quarterly or whatever they're choosing, is going to prevent breaches and issues later. What are you? No, you can never convince them.
Don't ever say that. Don't ever say we can prevent 100% of all the breaches.
I really do like certainty, and I really do like clarity. And I wish I was in a field. I wish I was in a lot of places in my life where there was absolute certainty, where I could make the decision and everybody listened to me. Unfortunately, it's not where I'm at this stage of my life. Maybe soon. But when you're in a situation where you are able to articulate, this is what you need, this will help you, and they understand. What are you saying? What's the bridge here?
I think what it is the owner of the business is outside, has a life outside their business, or owners. So if you go into again, we'll use a law practice. You have 2 or 3 lawyers, studious students through high school, through college, through law school. It's lawyers for the most part are generally pretty smart people about the law. Mm-hmm. But if you ask them about economics, probably don't know. If you ask them about current events, they may or may not know. They know the law and they know it real well. Go to a doctor. Doctor knows about healthcare, knows about medicine, knows about drugs, knows about all this, all these things. Ask them about business. They don't teach business in med school. So a lot of times you have people that are either they're naturally curious or they just think it's interesting or they had a friend or someone that had an experience with a cyber attack. My college roommate, I talked to him and he's like, oh my God, I forgot you were in this. I just had to pay somebody a lot of money to help me get some data back and blah, 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 blah. So
you went with someone else?
Honestly, I'd rather him do that because if they mess it up, then he can yell at them. If I mess it up, then that's a long-term relationship I don't want to mess with. So yeah, I mean, you have to be. I had a woman one time say to me at her office, "We don't need you. We have an IT guy." Not a woman, but an IT guy, which that's a whole nother discussion we can get into. But we have an IT guy. And I said, that's great. And I'm sure they do a wonderful job. But IT is not security because it isn't. And her response to me was, I'm not going to sit here and argue semantics with you. And I should have said okay and left, but I have a big mouth. And Friday at 4:30, I was tired. So I said, it's not semantics. If I get arrested and charged with murder, my next door neighbor is a real estate attorney. I'm not going to him.
Right. Yeah.
It's not semantics. It isn't. If you find somebody that's an IAM expert and you have an issue with access management, that's the person you're going to go to. If you're not going to go to the GRC guy necessarily, or the security awareness woman, or whatever it may be, you're going to go to the quote unquote specialist. The thing about cybersecurity that people that are trying to get into it or are switching careers and want to get into it or trying to enlarge their knowledge base and get into it, there are so many different things you can do. It's not all about we're in. It's not sort
like my TV.
Yeah, exactly. It's not. There's people that have worked in a SOC will tell you it's boring for hours and hours on end. And I see people with 8-hour SOC shifts, which, by the way, I will go on the record, is absolutely insane. There's no way you can be remotely paying attention in an 8-hour shift. After like the first hour, you're done. Now, I'm not saying you should hire 24 people to have 24 hours, but do a half an hour shift, give them a 10, 20-minute break, do a half-hour shift. It's even with AI to solve all our problems, it's the human mind can only. Why do you think television shows are less than a half an hour?
Yeah. Or in reels, now we're even quicker because
no.
2 seconds, or I think 7 seconds or 13 seconds. So I will say I don't really watch movies and TV much because probably I've been in social media and marketing for so long that my brain's probably, so that's.
I look at a screen all day. Why do I want to go downstairs and look at the screen of something else? I'll read a book or I'll go.
That's not security related, but that's true too. That's true. I want to go look at some outside and trees and like the sun. Yeah. Well, it is. It's coming up on the end of the hour. I did want to make sure folks heard me say again, if you have a question that we haven't touched base, or maybe to kind of expand on anything we talked about, this is the time to make sure you type that in. If you miss it, we will always follow up. I know how to reach Aaron on LinkedIn, and I can send that information out as well. But he's here. He's got a few more minutes. As we wrap up, before any questions come in, I would ask, is there anything that you wish your peers or the peers in this virtual room understood or knew that we didn't cover? Like if they were going to walk out of here feeling like I learned something, I'm going to make this effort or this change today or this week or this month, what would you tell them?
2 things. One is be careful with the choice of words that you use because they do have effects. And calling somebody stupid is never received. Oh, yeah, I am stupid. Okay, thanks. Never received well. Keep in mind that ignorance is not stupidity. And when you're working with other people, they don't know everything. You don't know everything. So keep that in mind. The second thing, a hacker is not a criminal. A criminal is a criminal. And
Yeah, we use criminal hackers separately from hacker because they are different. They're ethical hackers. Very important.
And we all wear hoodies, and we all don't sit in front of our keyboards like this at night. And we're all not Caucasian males too, which some people are surprised to learn. So
no, there are a lot of lady hackers and a diverse group of hacker people of all sorts. So that's.
But use your network. The best thing I have a daughter who's in college, and I say to her, your network is going to make the difference. You could be the smartest kid in the class, but if you don't know anybody, you're never going to get a job. I was not the smartest kid in any of my classes ever, but I have a pretty good network of people that someone will ask me a question. I don't know the answer. I'm not going to ask AI. I'll say, hey, you know what? Let me introduce you to my friend Dave or my friend Rebecca. She's excellent at this, because I could probably stumble through it, but talk to an expert. And most of the people, again, I hammer this because it's so true. Most of people in cybersecurity are really great people. They're nice, they're kind, they'll give you their time, they'll share knowledge with you. You know, my platform, Travis, I talk to my competitors. I talked to 2 of them today. We're direct competitors. We're fighting for the same person, dollar, nickel. But you know what? There's enough to go around. We can be friendly. I'm not exposing my secret sauce. He's not exposing his, and she's not telling me anything. It doesn't have to be competitive. It can be a cooperative environment. And don't be afraid. If you have a question, just reach out and ask someone. Or if you want to connect with someone, don't be salesy and don't ask for something. Just be like, hey, I'd like to talk to you. And I think that you'll find that most people are really, really cool. My biggest regret is not getting into this industry a long time ago.
Sooner. Nice. That's a great thing to feel about your career. That's a really uplifting thing to feel about your career, for sure. That's awesome. I would feel the same way, for sure, too. Certainly better than political fundraising. I'll admit to that. Well, this is lovely. And Aaron, I've learned so much from you in both of our conversations. Just the way you outlined the experience that you had and then humanizing it so much. I think that's great for our community, and the asking questions and building. That's why we do these. Obviously, Defendify is a cybersecurity platform, but you'll notice, like, this isn't a sales pitch. It's essentially to build the community up, and a lot of times the folks in the chat will support each other, and I hope we awesome. Touch base. I'm on LinkedIn, you're on LinkedIn. We send an email after this with the recording so folks can follow up and watch again and ask questions. Overall, thank you so much for your time and for sharing your wisdom and your experience with us today, and I just thank you. We really appreciate it, and I hope you have the great rest of your week and a great weekend.
Thank you, and thank you everybody for tuning in. If you do have questions, feel free to reach out. Happy to spend time with people. And like I said, just keep learning, because it's going to get crazier.
Yeah, absolutely will. All right, everybody. We'll see you next month. Thank you, and have a great week. Bye.
Bye-bye.